Good morning. My name is Kelly Kelly, and I'm Ed's daughter-in-law. Please take a moment to join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for gathering us together today to celebrate Ed's life and all that he meant to each of us. We ask for your peace that surpasses all understanding as we endure the loss of a dear husband, father, and friend. Thank you for your presence and comfort in this place as we share memories and reflect on a life well lived. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Hey, everybody. I felt compelled just to welcome you all and to just really thank you. I have heard from literally hundreds and hundreds of people over this last almost 4 weeks, sharing their love and stories about Ed and why he was so important to them. So today, I thought it was appropriate that we share some time talking about the many facets of Ed Monday, because you all knew him in your own special ways, but I wanted you to see the big picture here on who this guy really, really was. So I'm going to talk for just a couple minutes about Ed the husband. We just, from the minute we met almost, we just complemented each other so perfectly. And our love affair lasted for 27 years. And I am so grateful for that. As I've talked to many people, they've expressed that, gosh, that's a long marriage. And for me, I don't really think of it that way, but I guess it can be. So for 27 years, we were so in love, even until that very last moment. Where I was weak, he was very strong. And where he was weak, I would take over. I want you to know we planned for this day. We spoke about it many, many times throughout our marriage. The fact that there was such a significant age difference, it was likely that he may die first, or what would happen to him if I died first. So we had those conversations, and we planned every time he would go in for surgery. He had 9 significant surgeries throughout our 27 years. And each time he'd go in for surgery, we'd talk and we'd kind of plan for what if. We planned for his battle, which we thought was going to happen right now with lung cancer. Many of you don't know he was diagnosed in March with lung cancer, and that we were preparing for, and we were getting ready to battle. And he said, I do not want that to debilitate me. And I was going to help him through it. But I'll tell you what we didn't plan for. We didn't plan for heart failure. We didn't realize that in 7 days, your heart could actually just stop because it's so weak that it just couldn't continue. They were long days. And we were surprised each time a doctor would come in and say, I'm sorry, it didn't work, but we're going to try this now. And then they'd try that, and then they would come in and say, I'm sorry, but it didn't work. So after a few days of that, our spirits were really broken. And we knew that this was it, this was the end. We faced the truth. And we had time to be able to say goodbye, which, many people don't get that opportunity. And we were fortunate that we did. We spoke about what a wonderful life we had and some of the really fun things we did and how much we loved each other. And finally, he was sedated because he was beginning to get a little uncomfortable that last 24 hours. So with his eyes closed and just very peaceful, laying there, his heart finally stopped. Doctors and nurses came into the room with me following that, and I want you to know that they cried. His kidney doctor, his heart doctor, the doctor in intensive care, were so emotional and said, I can't believe how much we bonded with him in just 7 days. He was really quite a guy, and you can tell he led a life well lived. I went just this week to my own appointment with Dr. Rao, his cardiologist, who I have now as my cardiologist because she had an opening. Thank you, Ed. I liked my other guy, but I really liked Dr. Rao. So now that there was an opening, I asked if she could be mine. So I went in to see her, and I want you to know, she walked in the room, and she walked over to in front of me, and just stood there, and her eyes swelled with tears, and she said, Mrs. Monday, I just have no words. I don't even know what I can say to you. I am just so sorry. He was a gentle, respectful man. You could tell he liked to follow the rules. And he is going to be sadly missed by my office. My lawn guy came to mow the lawn the week after Ed passed, and he walks up the driveway and he says, hey, Mrs. Monday, where's Ed at? And I had to tell him, and he cried. So you know you've got a good man if your lawn man is crying about your husband. I mean, it was like so very, very moving. In all situations of my life as his wife, I want you to know, many of you do know, he did the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry. He did all of those things so that I could work my tail off in sales to make a good life for us as he was retired. So along with that, he was my rock. He was my voice of reason, my calming spirit, my barometer. He could tell when my pressure was rising. And if we were sitting down, he would grab my leg with that death grip, and I knew it was time to stop. Or he would say, Peggy Sue, calm down. So without him, I just want you all to know that you better look out, because I was talking to Pastor June, and I said, you know, honestly, I have no idea now. I could be totally out of control. And she said, well, now you need to ask yourself, what would Jesus do and what would Ed say? So that's what I'm going to try to do. I haven't had to use that just yet. I loved that he loved going to the grocery store. He loved it. He would go every day if he could and just pick up one thing. He just loved going to the store to see what was on sale, and he'd come home with his latest find, and he'd be so excited. He loved dogs. He loved any kind of ice cream. He loved reality crime shows. He always watched Killer Couples and Wives with Knives and all of these ridiculous shows. And he loved holding my hand when we'd sit on the couch at night and watch TV. This man of patience hated stoplights. He hated waiting in line for anything. He'd often go get a prescription, and he'd come home without it. And I'd say, well, you didn't get it? And he's like, heck no, I had to wait in line. I waited for 20 minutes. The line didn't move. I just said, forget it, and came home. So he would just give up on lines. The other thing he really disliked, really hated, was people who lied to him. And often I would hear people, now that he's passed, say, oh, everybody loved Ed Monday. And I'd say, well, not really. There were plenty politicians up in Illinois that did not care for him because he wanted the real story, not their story. And so if he had any kind of idea that they might not be giving him the truth, he would dig and he would dig until he found out the truth behind what was going on. He did that with our kids. He did it with our grandkids. If there's a lie, he's going to know it, and he is not going to accept that. So now, what am I going to do without him? Well, not sure. You know, we talked about that a lot. And this generous, sweet, loving, gentle, kind man talked about how my life should be if he were gone. Being able to move forward is, I can't even describe that. It is so difficult. But I'm going to keep remembering what he would say to me. He would say, you know, I don't want you sitting around crying. He said, I want you to just move on with life. I just want you to enjoy life. Don't just be sitting around crying. So that's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to remember that he is always here with me. I talk to him still. Sure wish he could answer, but he's always with me forever and always in my heart. I want to introduce you now to our son, Matt. Matt came to live with us 20 years ago. And we are so blessed with him. And Ed was his father figure. And we're grateful that he can be here today to talk to you about Ed the father.
Good thing she doesn't want a hug because I probably couldn't hold it together.
Well, here, I mean,
Come back to later.
I didn't mean to.
Lighten the mood.
Okay.
Keep it light. First time I've ever been given the honor to speak about somebody as the father. And I've been reminiscing on this for a couple weeks, and I could keep you here for a couple weeks. But in an effort to be concise, I've likened it to the metaphor of a home, because Ed took me into his home, him and Peggy Sue. Can you hear me? A little bit? Because him and Peggy Sue took me into their home. So I've likened it to being in a home. And I picked out just a few rooms that mean the most to me. So the first one's the front porch. I learned that the front porch is for meeting and greeting. And Ed and Peggy Sue, you've known them. They've got relationships that are a mile wide and a couple inches deep. And then they've got some that are very, very precious to them. And Ed was really, really good at this. He was very quick-witted, quick with a joke, but also had the ability to dive deep and to talk about stuff that really mattered to him. He taught me how to stand up straight with my shoulders back, to approach other people with dignity and respect, didn't matter who they were. It could have been the clerk at the grocery store. I think that's part of the reason he liked it so much, was just affirming somebody has dignity, and you can have a little micro moment of positivity with a person, and that was good for you and that was good for them. And I still do that to this day. And even though he could do that, he also shared what I would call his private stock, if you will, of thoughts and of his feelings with just a close few. And those people got invited into the living room. And I was one of those people. And in the living room is where I learned to relax. And if you know Ed, Ed was really good at knowing how to relax, true expert. And this might sound funny, and it kind of is, but as I've matured, it's actually a noble mark of maturity to be able to take our world, which every day when you wake up is a bit of chaos, and to be able to still it and to norm it and to figure out what truly matters. That's a mark of maturity. And Ed could do that. That's the hand on the thigh. Hey, honey, let's bring it back into perspective here. Ed became that calm, steady voice of meaning and reason. And that doesn't leave me. That is sewn into my heart. I carry that with me forever. I remember one conversation in particular, which is kind of funny, because I got busted. So you remember these as a kid, right? When you get busted? I got busted for borrowing Ed's car. And I remember when I got busted because it was like an interrogation. And where I came from homes with a lot of abuse. So the idea of having conflict and getting in trouble is class 5, immediate fight or flight. Like I'm literally thinking, I need to run, I need to go somewhere, I've got to escape. And not with Peggy Sue and Ed, you're not going to do that. Peggy Sue, she had some words, and she had some feelings about that, and then Ed was the counterbalance. And what he was really looking for was just to see if I was going to admit that I took the car not a big deal. I took it. I dropped off my buddy who was the quarterback on the football team. It was innocent, but Ed had a nice Sebring convertible, and what I didn't know is it said Ed's Fund One on the license plate. So Ed knew some people around town, and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing on the outskirts of town at 9:30 at night?" He's like, "Well, in fact, I've been on a staycation with my wife. We've not been anywhere." And what I take from that memory is Ed knew how to steer me and other people in the right direction without abusing me, without making me feel shameful. He knew how to do that in a dignifying way, and that worked. That influenced me. The other I probably just fought off, but his cool, calm, steady approach, that's what worked. And it was in that same calm, cool demeanor that he taught me how to drive. He taught me how to get up, put myself together, go to work. He taught me how to live well with a woman, or at least make an attempt at that. That demeanor was really important to me, and it's really balanced out my personality. And the last room that I picked was the bedroom, because the bedroom is a place for all of us that we retire to at the end of the day. And it's a place of privacy in our own thoughts, and a level of intimacy with ourselves. And this room is the hardest room for me to reflect on, because I remember when I went to live with Peggy Sue and Ed, and it was starting to become official, and I'm thinking in my head, this is just another family. As soon as they figure out who I really am, I'm gone again. And I remember looking at Ed and thinking, I'm too old to do this whole son thing again. I'm like 14, right? And I looked at Ed, I'm like, well, he's about 62, so he's probably too old to do this dad thing again. And yet, he wasn't. And yet, I remember him saying to me in his Ed voice, Matthew, the reason that we made this decision is because we see potential inside of you. Potential that we don't think you see, and that we don't think you'll realize unless you have the chance to live the life of a normal high school kid. And he took that chance. And out of him taking that chance, so many dreams have spun off for me, things that I never thought that I would have. And the ones that are most precious to me, I had the chance to go to college, to play a sport. None of my family had ever went to college, not even on the docket. We're Marines for generations, and infantry, right? That's what we do. And here I am, I graduated from college. And what did that lead me into? Well, I met my beautiful wife. And from my beautiful wife, and from the image of a father who could love a woman and could choose to do that with his adult life, and could choose daily to keep that together, to choose to hold her hand. Because you don't always feel like holding a hand, but it's the right thing to do. And then your emotions catch up with you. And just like your wife's voice, on the outside you say, yes, honey, yes, dear. And even on the inside, you're like, no, I don't really think that's how this is going to go down. And then you sober up and you're like, man, she's right again. Right again. Doing the right thing. She's right again. I needed that image of a father, to have the courage to become a father myself. And I think that in large part has not only established our family, but that little baby right there, Lincoln, his name's Lincoln, and we're here in the Lincoln room. And God does that kind of stuff in my life. He knows what I need before I know I need it. And that name, I don't know exactly where it came from, but I think that it's inspired by the essence of who Ed was to me, that he was a person of dignity and of respect. And I hope I can impart on that young man the same thing he's imparted on me, the ability to stand up straight with your shoulders back, to address the world, to have an influence on it, to not see it as just a burden that we're here to serve, we're here to give, and to be generous. And I sure hope that I don't have to bring somebody like me into my house someday in order to pay my dues. But if I do, I will have a great model for that. I have the honor to introduce David Palmer, and Dave was a very good friend of Ed's, and that's what Ed became to me. Ed, later in life, it was not so much just the father who's teaching the son how to live life, but a good father always becomes a great friend. And I look back at some of my text messages, and maybe you'll do that. Maybe if you texted with that, or if you were Facebook, maybe you'll do that. Just brace yourself a little bit. But as I was looking back at those, it was all the friend stuff. When I feel like in my life, it's sometimes, friends, they come and go, but not that kind of friend. Father stays. Just, hey, I've got this meeting with the president of the Chamber of Commerce. What do I do? You were the president once upon a time. And he's like, give me a call. Hey, I'm really wrestling with this. What do you think I should do? Well, Matthew, sounds like you should do this, right? That's the mark of a friend. And now you get to hear about Ed as the friend.
Hard act to follow. Good morning. Have you ever experienced crossing paths with a special person, a unique soul, and form an instantaneous connection? Become a best friend. Well, my name is David Palmer, and Ed Mundy was just such a connection and friend to me. Ed, Peggy Sue, and Karen and I, we met at Druid Hills Church about 15 years ago. And Ed made a unique impression. We were in the pew in front of Ed and Peggy Sue, and as we sang and read the word and had some responsive reading, Ed's voice stood out distinctly, made quite an impression. Our fellowship at that church has allowed us to form a beautiful and priceless friendship. But after worship, I remember complimenting Ed about this voice. And I had to ask him, Ed, are you a professional singer or a public speaker? And lo and behold, I learned that indeed Ed Mundy was a gifted broadcaster, a long-serving newsman, news director, and a public speaker who was well sought after in Kankakee, Illinois, the home state of my dad. He was gifted. Ed shared by his gentle example his faith with those he loved and with those that he met. He was so funny. He was a man that just loved humor. And he had a sense of fun that was infectious. Matt mentioned he was quick-witted. He was quick with a pun, with trivia. I've never seen anybody that had more trivia in his brain than Ed Mundy. With a story, with an imitation of other folks. But Ed laughed at himself the most. Ed used his gift of oration and exhortation in our church over the years as a worship liturgist and as a narrator for cantatas for many years. Most of you will not know that Ed and I were entertainment partners. It's true. One of his most memorable roles was that of the famous and infamous Italian chef, Chef Eduardo Mondolini. Chef Mondolini didn't speak any English, of course, and so he needed an interpreter, and I was tapped by the chef to be his interpreter, which came in very handy as we would announce our church spaghetti suppers during the early part of our service, the announcement time. I would be at the front, and I would introduce Chef Mondolini, and Ed, in full Italian chef regalia, would start making his way towards the front where I was, banging on this big empty saucepan with a wooden chef spoon about that long, and espousing in, I think it was Italian, it sure sounded Italian, with all those that were gathered. When I would introduce him, of course I would kiss him on each cheek. Now, just for the record, this is the proper way to greet an Italian man, one to the other. It was a requirement, just saying. So I would then interpret for him. And Ed, with his rich baritone bass voice, speaking his gobbledygook Italian, had us all believing that he was speaking Italian. The only words I ever really picked out of that I thought or Italian was something about Gina Lollobrigida or something like that. I don't know. For those that you know who that famous actress was. Our commercials were always hilarious and looked forward to, and our spaghetti suppers were well attended over the years. I recently shared with Peggy Sue as she sent to me one of the beautiful tributes to share to Ed's broadcasting career in Illinois. When I heard him giving his piece of news as the news director, I immediately thought of his Italian chef persona and that voice, that unmistakable voice that was Ed Mundy's. Ed and I formed a two-man Dean Martin-style roasting team as well. We called ourselves the Men in Blue. We were the Men in Blue, not the Men in Black, because neither one of us owned a black coat. But we crafted our roasting bits, Peggy Sue, you'll remember, at your kitchen table, for a good friend who actually asked us to roast him. I never figured that one out. On his 70th birthday, which we were happy to do, and we had such fun. That same friend and Ed and I formed a singing group. We called ourselves the Out-of-Tones. And we formed this group to play at our church talent shows.
Non-talent show.
Well, it was thank you for that, non-talent show, almost a talent show, which Peggy Sue emceed for some years so beautifully. We specialized in doo-wop music. Under the Boardwalk, The Lion Sleeps Tonight, and our signature song was Good Night, Sweetheart, which we always closed the talent show with. Ed's favorite part went something like this. Do, 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 do. And there was many more. Ed was a great listener. He was a gentle and kind heart. He was a great encourager and role model for me as a husband, as a friend, as a man. I'm so grateful for the many hours that we have spent together. Meals and wine dinners and couples outings. We've been singing together and doing trivia and just hanging out. And we prayed together too. We were best of friends. My dearest Peggy Sue, Ed worshiped you. He loved you with his whole being. And Matt, you and the family, each of you were precious, a precious treasure to him. And you are to Karen and I too. We love you. Love you so much. My heart surely aches at the passing of my dear friend Ed. Yet I'm joyful knowing that our crossed paths, we formed a beautiful connection, and I will never forget and always remember our friendship. I love you. God bless you. Blessings and peace.
Hugs are required here.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good to see you all here today. My name is Ken Zier. None of you know who I am. That's because I was Ed Munday's direct competitor in Kankakee for 25 years at the Crosstown radio station. Now, when Peggy Sue asked me to speak today, and she wisely, and you should thank her on the way out, because she wisely said to me, 5 minutes.
I got that too.
Because she knows I'm at radio, I can stand there for 25 minutes. But she's a smart woman, she knew. She was with Ed, who, as you know, was a consummate professional. The man would dig, and when he left town, when he finally retired, I guarantee you there were politicians at bars celebrating. Now, when Peggy Sue asked me to come here today, I immediately agreed. But to tell you the truth, I wasn't sure why she asked me to say a few words, because though I respected Ed immensely, he was a great talent, great newsman, unbelievable newsman, especially for the size market we were in, which is a very small market. we weren't friends in the traditional sense of the word. We didn't hang out together. I was never at his house. He was never at mine. We never shared a dinner. We didn't even ever have a drink together. But we would come across each other all the time at different spots. Now, for me to tell this story, please indulge me. I have to give you a little personal history. In 1983, I was working for a South Suburban Chicago radio station that had studios in Kankakee. I was a news director there, but only in the sense that it was a title. We did what we call rip and read. You take it off the AP, get in front of a microphone, you read it. Your dog could do it if he could read. My main job was to be a sidekick for the morning man as we did our little comedy routines and entertained whoever was out there listening. We did ignore Kankakee. We never talked about it. I grew up in the southwest side of Chicago, and I didn't know where Kankakee, I had to find a map to find out where Kankakee was when I first came down to apply for the job. In 1995, that station I was working for was sold to a Hispanic group, and we were all going to be out of a job. The station management, in between the ensuing years, about 10 years or so, we were together, they had purchased a small radio station in Kankakee that they put on the air. It was run by computer. No live people at all. They wanted to take that station, after they made millions from selling the big one, and turn it into a full-service, local Kankakee radio station. So faced with unemployment, they came up to me and they said, "Ken, how would you like to make this a real live news department?" Sure. You know, I'm not going to walk out of here if I don't have to. So I was instructed to take on the great Ed Monday at WKAN. He was a legend. And not only take him on, but beat him. That was my goal. That was my mission. Now, even though I didn't broadcast in Kankakee at that now sold station, I did live there since 1981. That's where the studios were. And I was in a very nice apartment complex with a pool right along the Kankakee River. Beautiful. Every summer, I'd go out in the afternoon when I got home, sit down by the pool, have a little radio on. Now, I've been listening to rock and roll and top 40 radio all day. I didn't want to hear that anymore. So I would turn on a soft rock